Vic is great at helping you define what your authentic voice is and then market once you have that understanding of what that is. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you a little of what has happened to me after I started with Vic, who I met in my consulting group, okay? Or I'm sorry, who I met in my networking group, which is called Clients for Life, okay? In the last couple of weeks, and please, I don't mean to be bragging on me. I'm just trying to say that once you start throwing seeds or energy in a particular direction, some wonderful things start happening, okay? So because of a conscious decision that I made when I was in a meeting with Vic, last week I spoke to 50 brokers who were just starting out in the industry, okay? So instead of talking with just one person, I'm talking to 50 new brokers who are in training, and that was the result of a conversation with Vic and 2 emails, okay? I was last Thursday on Channel 13 at 6:30 discussing the state of the mortgage market. I addressed 5 financial planners during a 75-minute meeting that I had been invited to. So I think what I'm trying to say is that if you get somebody alongside you to start prodding you and moving you forward, there are interesting things that will come together that will help to make your business move along and get you, hopefully, a bigger piece of the pie. Okay? So without further ado, most of you have received by email Vic's information. He wrote the book 365 Marketing Thumb Rules, and he's going to talk a little about making a marketing action plan with you. Okay? Thank you.
In the real estate market that I've been watching over the past, I would say almost 10 years now, watching as an observer, watching as a consultant and a marketing advisor to the real estate industry. I also work with attorneys and accountants and financial advisors. And basically, I help them market their practice within their codes of ethics and, in the case of financial services providers, their compliance obligations. And I'm not going to use the microphone, but everyone can hear me? Yeah, great. And I've been watching this market change over the past couple of years in terms of the marketplace, in terms of consumers, people searching for homes, searching for commercial properties even, and the way that they're looking to not only find out more about properties, be it residential in this case or commercial, and also the way that they're learning about agents, learning about brokers in general, learning about advisors in the larger market. And what I've noticed is that while the customers are changing, while the end users are changing, very often the service providers, the agents, the brokers, the advisors aren't really changing along with it. So I figured let me give you a couple of ideas in terms of drawing a line in the sand and kind of welcoming you to 2009. And the reason I say welcome you to 2009 because it's a great year for us. Because it's a turning point. It's a fork in the road. It can be, for a lot of people, a new beginning. Unfortunately for a lot of folks, especially in the real estate market as agents, for a lot of people it's going to be a learning year. It's going to be a learning year to realize, well, you know what, the market had changed. We were just not really prepared to change along with it. What do I mean by that? Remember back about 9 years ago in the year 2000, Y2K. It was a new millennium, and at that point the internet was booming. Everything was .com this, .com that. It was all these crazy business models. People thought business was going to change forever. All these kinds of crazy ideas were. People my age were multi-millionaires overnight over maybe just kind of a crazy name and .com after it. And they weren't really making money off of it per se, but they knew a new way and they knew a good thing coming. And it was generally folks in the older generations that were kind of investing in these companies and saying, hey, we can figure out how to make it work. And well, the .com bubble kind of burst. And along with that, a lot of people said, well, okay, he's going to come back to business as usual. But right around then was really when the real estate market started booming. And we had a variety of reasons. I'm not going to get into a variety of the regulatory reasons of why the real estate market started booming. You guys probably know that better than I do. And you guys lived through it, and it was wonderful, wonderful times. People had money, people were prosperous, people were closing deals. It was wonderful. However, the market had already changed. We just may not have changed along with it. What do I mean by that? Well, the internet is here. The internet was never really a fad, but the internet has not only become part of our everyday life, but it's actually changed the way our lives are. For example, how many of us in the room, and I don't own one, but how many in the room have a BlackBerry? Or a Trio, or a version of an email device where if you lost it, you would feel your world was crumbling around you. Okay, so, okay, maybe not, shaking head. We'll find out, when he loses it. I don't have one because my clients all have one. They figure that since I must have one, they email me as if, I have one, and they panic when I don't get back to them within 10 minutes. And I'm sure you guys probably have that realization with some of your customers and clients and prospective buyers that if you don't get back to them, they don't get back to you. We're in this instant world that unfortunately we're really never going to go backward. It's only going to get even more and more instantaneous. And the reason I say that is because it's evidence of how life has changed forever, to put it in such dramatic terms. Because the internet is no longer a search medium, but actually a virtual reality. Does that make sense? Because many of you probably within the course of, I'm going to talk for about maybe a half an hour or so, and I want to answer questions. So I would really love for you guys to ask me questions about this new world of marketing and marketing your real estate practice, and not only your listings, but also your capability, which we'll talk about. People are using the internet as a virtual reality. They're actually developing a life online. And I don't mean an alternate life or a persona or kind of cheating people. I don't mean that way at all. I mean the fact that instead of using the internet as like a Google, which is kind of like Yellow Pages on steroids, and instead of using it as just a search medium and then picking up the phone and doing something else, they're actually spending time online. And many of us can relate to that. Those of us who are actively online, and we'll talk about what that means in terms of the stuff like Facebook and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. And we'll introduce a little bit of that. But you can even imagine some of your kids and how much time they're spending text messaging, IMing, and actually chatting without ever opening their mouth. And that concept of chatting without ever opening their mouth is going to take over. It is here. They're saying right now that the tweens, the kids that are between the 13, the pre-teenagers, right now all they do is text message. Now, I'm not really of that generation. There are a variety of generations in this room, from the greatest generation to Gen X to the MTV generation to probably what we can call the MySpace generation. These kids who probably don't know anything better or anything else but the internet. They grew up in their conscious life with all this .com stuff. They'll never wonder, or they'll wonder only, how business and life was done before the internet. Kind of BI. Before the internet. And it's kind of for me, the same way I don't know how business was done without a cell phone. I can't imagine hunting for a payphone if I'm running late. For me to pick up a cell phone is just a normal thing. For me to hunt for a payphone, I remember it, growing up, doing in the rain and that horrible stuff, but can't imagine business was actually done before fax machines, before email, before cell phones. And that's how it is for a lot of kids growing up. Now, of course, these kids growing up, they're not that young. 13-year-olds are going to be 18 in 5 years. That means anyone older than that, really right around the corner, they're our next professionals, they're our next home buyers, they're our next business people, they're the next people kind of running the world, and it's coming. More than that it's coming, that this is the future, I'd like to present to you that it's already here. In fact, statistically speaking, a greater percentage of people online are way above 25 than they are under 25, statistically speaking, just because, probably they're not allowed to be if they're, younger than maybe 13, 14 years old. So if you think about it from that aspect, everything that we're talking about that sounds way young actually isn't. And it's a normal part of our life because you're living it. You just might call it BlackBerries and iPhones instead of MySpace and Facebook, but it's really the same thing. It's the way business is being done. So I commit to you that we're going to draw a line in the sand and say that there was a time when we lived through a real estate boom. But during that real estate boom of the 2000s that we just kind of coming off of and sobering from was really an aberration, a happenstance that actually flew in the face of something that was fundamentally changed. And while the regulations will ebb and flow, what has fundamentally changed is the internet. And you need to kind of think of now, for the future, your own vision of where your business, where your real estate practice is going to be. How is your career going to go? And